The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of crystalline metal that caught the light of distant stars. Inside, 12 species gathered in desperation. They had built this place 3,000 years ago as a symbol of unity and peace. Now it might become their tomb. Ambassador Velrus stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms trembling slightly. His species, the Thalon, had been the first to propose the Galactic Council. They believed in logic and reason, in the power of words over weapons. For millennia, that belief had served them well. Now it was killing them. The Kreeth fleet has taken the Morian colonies, Velrus announced, his voice carrying through the translation systems to all the assembled delegates. 15 billion souls. All gone. They gave no warning. They offered no terms. They simply arrived and began bombardment, the chamber filled with the sounds of distress. The Morians, a gentle aquatic species, swayed in their water tanks. The insectoid Vex clicked their mandibles in sorrow. The crystalline Shora dimmed their internal lights in mourning. How long until they reach the core worlds? Asked Council Prime Nethra, her gaseous form swirling with colors that indicated deep concern. 6 months, Velrus said. Perhaps less. Our defensive shields are failing. The Kreeth have weapons we do not understand. They break through our barriers as if they were nothing. We must negotiate, insisted Ambassador Korath of the Vex. Every species can be reasoned with. We must find what they want and offer it to them. Velrus felt something close to despair. They had tried negotiating. They had sent 17 diplomatic missions to the Kreeth Dominion. None had returned. The Kreeth did not want resources or territory or trade agreements. They wanted conquest. They wanted to dominate. These were concepts the Council had thought long extinct in the galaxy. There is nothing to negotiate, Velrus said quietly. The Kreeth evolved on a death world. Their entire culture is built around strength and domination. They see our peace as weakness. They see our reluctance to fight as an invitation to destroy us. The chamber fell silent. The truth hung in the air like a poison. The Galactic Council represented the most advanced civilizations in known space. They had mastered gravity, conquered disease, built wonders that defied imagination. But they had also evolved beyond violence. Their ancestors had fought wars, but that was thousands of years ago. Modern Council species had no soldiers, no weapons of war, only shields and barriers meant to protect, never to harm. We could evacuate, suggested a delegate from the Thun species. Abandon our worlds and flee to unexplored space. And leave behind our homes? Our history? Velrus shook his head. Besides, the Kreeth would hunt us. They do not forgive. They do not forget. They would pursue us across the galaxy. Council Prime Nethra's form shifted to a deep blue, the color of determination. Then we send out a distress call. We broadcast it to every corner of known space. Perhaps there are species we have not yet encountered. Species that might help us. What kind of species? Asked Korath. The galaxy is mapped. We know every civilization within 5,000 light years. None of them are warriors. Not every civilization, said Velrus slowly. An idea was forming in his mind, a desperate and perhaps foolish idea. There is one world we have avoided. One species we marked as pre-contact. The chamber stirred with interest. Which world? Asked Nethra. They call it Earth, Velrus said. Third planet in a yellow star system. We surveyed it 50 years ago and classified it as Level 2 civilization. Primitive by our standards. They had just begun exploring their own solar system. Then how could they possibly help us? Demanded Korath. Velrus pulled up the old survey data, displaying it in the center of the chamber. Images of Earth appeared, a blue and green world swirled with white clouds. Beautiful, peaceful looking. But the survey had noted something else. The survey team was disturbed by what they found, Velrus explained. The humans, as they call themselves, had recently ended a global conflict. The survey recorded evidence of weapons that could destroy entire cities. They found stockpiles of nuclear devices, chemical weapons, biological agents. The team recommended quarantine. You want to contact a species of savages? Korath's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. Are you suggesting we replace one threat with another? I am suggesting we contact the only species in range that might understand how to fight, Velrus said. The survey noted something else. Despite their weapons, despite their conflicts, the humans had also achieved remarkable cooperation. They had formed a global government. They were reaching for the stars. The survey team concluded that humans were dangerous, yes, but also capable of great compassion. The debate raged for hours. Some delegates argued it was too risky. Others insisted there were no other options. Finally, as the holographic displays showed another Kreth fleet moving toward council space, they voted. The decision was unanimous. They would send the message. Velrus composed it himself, choosing words carefully. He explained who the council was, their situation, their desperation. He asked for help. He offered everything the council had: technology, knowledge, resources. He sent it toward Earth on every frequency, using every method of faster-than-light communication available. Then they waited. Days passed. The Kreth continued their advance. Council worlds evacuated their populations to the core systems, buying time but not much. The defensive fleets fought delaying actions, their shields absorbing Kreth weapons fire until the generators failed and the ships died. They did not fight back. They could not. It was not in their nature. Velrus spent sleepless nights wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. What if the humans had destroyed themselves in the 50 years since the survey? What if they received the message and ignored it? What if they decided to side with the Kreth? What if they came and proved to be just as bad as the Empire destroying the Council? 6 days after the message was sent, they received a response. It came on a simple radio frequency, the kind of primitive communication Earth had been using 50 years ago. The Council's translation systems took a moment to process the strange language, full of harsh consonants and strange rhythms. Galactic Council, this is Earth Defense Command. We received your distress call. We understand your situation. We are preparing a response fleet. Hold your positions. Protect your people. We are coming. Earth out. The message was short, military in tone, and completely unexpected. Velrus played it for the full council. The reactions were mixed. Some felt hope for the first time in months. Others expressed concern about the militaristic nature of the response. They said they are coming, Nethra observed. But they did not ask for more information. They did not request negotiations with the Kreth. They simply said they are coming. What does that mean? Asked Korath. Velrus studied the message, replaying it multiple times. The translation system provided additional context about human language patterns and meanings. One phrase stood out: response fleet. I believe, Velrus said slowly, that humans do not think like we do. We asked for help. We assumed help would mean evacuation, or mediation, or perhaps technology to improve our shields. I think humans interpreted our message differently. How so? Asked Nethra. I think when humans heard we were being attacked, they decided to respond with force. I think they are sending warships. The chamber erupted in discussion. Warships. The very concept was alien to most council species. They had defensive vessels, yes, but nothing designed primarily to destroy. The idea that Earth, a species they had considered primitive, might possess military capabilities beyond their own, was both hopeful and terrifying. How long until they arrive? Asked a Morian delegate. Velrus calculated based on the message's origin point and the fastest known methods of faster-than-light travel. If they use conventional jump drives, 3 weeks. If they have something faster, perhaps less. And the Kreth? 2 weeks until they reach our inner defensive perimeter. The Council had no choice but to wait and hope. They reinforced their shields, evacuated more civilians, and prepared for what might be their final stand. Velrus found himself praying to deities his species had not believed in for centuries. He prayed that Earth would arrive in time. He prayed that humans would be able to help. Mostly he prayed that in calling for salvation, he had not summoned something worse than the Kreth. 12 days later, long-range sensors detected anomalies at the edge of council space. 6 massive objects emerging from faster-than-light travel. They were not like any ships in the council database. They were blocky, angular, covered in what appeared to be armor plating. Energy signatures indicated power plants far beyond what Earth should have possessed. The lead ship sent a transmission. A human voice, calm and professional. Galactic Council, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth colonial ship Vengeance. We have arrived. Transmit all tactical data on hostile forces immediately. We are ready to engage. Velrus listened to those words and felt something he had not felt in months. Not quite hope. Something else. Something primal that his peaceful species had forgotten generations ago. It was the feeling prey animals get when a predator arrives to challenge the thing hunting them. The human ships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. Velrus stared at the holographic display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The vessels were nothing like council ships, which were designed to be beautiful as well as functional, their curves and flowing lines reflecting the aesthetic sensibilities of their builders. These human craft looked brutal, efficient, and utterly without decoration. The largest ship, the one called Vengeance, was over a kilometer long. Its hull was covered in what the Council's sensors identified as composite armor, layers of metal and ceramic designed to absorb impacts. Weapon ports lined its surface, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Energy readings suggested reactors powerful enough to run a small city. This is Ambassador Velrus of the Galactic Council. Commander Morrison, we are grateful for your arrival. We did not expect you so quickly. We pushed our engines hard, came the reply. Morrison's voice was steady, professional. Time was critical. We need all intelligence you have on the Kreth forces. Fleet positions, ship capabilities, weapon systems, command structure, everything. Velrus hesitated. The idea of sharing such information felt wrong, even though the Kreth were their enemies. Council species did not think in terms of targeting and tactics, but they had asked for help, and this was what help looked like. I will transmit our data immediately, Velrus said. But Commander, we must discuss your approach. The Kreth are powerful. Their fleet outnumbers yours significantly. Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact first, with Earth as mediator. There was a pause. Then Morrison spoke again, and Velrus heard something in his voice that made his skin prickle. It was not anger exactly. It was colder than that. More focused. Ambassador, with respect, we did not travel 6,000 light years to have a conversation. You sent a distress call. You said your people were being slaughtered. We came to stop that. The Kreth have ignored every diplomatic mission you sent. They have destroyed 15 billion of your people. Negotiations are over. Council Prime Nethra joined the channel, her gaseous form swirling with agitation. Commander Morrison, we appreciate Earth's assistance, but we cannot condone unnecessary violence. If there is any chance of peaceful resolution, we must pursue it. You already tried peace, Morrison said flatly. It did not work. The Kreth speak one language, and it is not words. Now I need that tactical data. Every minute we wait is a minute they use to strengthen their positions. Velrus transmitted the information. The Council had been tracking Kreth movements for months, documenting their fleet compositions, their attack patterns, their supply lines. Everything the humans requested flowed through the communication channels. Thank you, Morrison said after a moment. This is good intelligence, detailed. We can work with this. What will you do? Asked Velrus, though part of him feared the answer. We are going to hit their forward supply depot at the Curvin system. According to your data, they are using it as a staging point for their next push into Council space. We remove that depot, we buy you time and disrupt their logistics. The Curvin system is heavily defended, Nethra warned. 17 Kreth warships, multiple weapon platforms, shield generators. We saw the data, Morrison said. There was something in his voice that might have been amusement. 17 ships. We have 6? Those are acceptable odds. Velrus felt his heart skip. Humans thought 6 against 17 were acceptable odds. Either they were insane or they possessed capabilities far beyond what the Council had imagined. Commander, please understand. We did not call you here to sacrifice yourselves, Velrus said. If your fleet is destroyed, Earth will be vulnerable. The Kreth may turn their attention to your homeworld. They are welcome to try, Morrison replied. But first, they will have to get through us. Vengeance out. The human fleet moved with startling speed. Their ships accelerated at rates that would have crushed Council species under the gravitational forces. According to the sensor data, the humans used some kind of internal gravity compensation, but it was far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Velrus convened an emergency session of the Council. The delegates gathered in the chamber, all of them watching the long-range sensors as the human fleet raced toward the Curvin system. They are going to their deaths, Korath said, his mandibles clicking nervously. 6 ships cannot defeat 17. The Kreth will destroy them, perhaps, Velrus said quietly. Or perhaps humans know something about warfare that we do not. The human fleet reached the Curvin system in 18 hours, moving at speeds that should not have been possible. They did not approach cautiously or attempt to communicate. They simply dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately began their attack. The Council watched through long-range sensors and communication intercepts. What they saw would haunt them for years to come. Lieutenant Amy Pierce led a squadron of smaller ships, craft the humans called fighters. They were tiny compared to the capital ships, each one carrying only a single pilot. They should have been irrelevant in a battle between warships. Instead, they proved to be devastatingly effective. Pierce and her squadron launched from the Vengeance and accelerated toward the Kreth depot. The Kreth defenders responded, their weapons platforms tracking the incoming threats and opening fire. Energy beams that could vaporize Council ships lanced through space. The human fighters dodged, not with shields or barriers, but with raw maneuvering. They twisted and turned, flying patterns that no Council pilot would have attempted. 3 fighters were destroyed in the initial barrage consumed by Kreth energy weapons. The rest reached their targets. Missiles launched sleek projectiles that moved at incredible speeds. They struck the Kreth weapon platforms and detonated. The Council sensors recorded the explosions, nuclear detonations releasing energy equivalent to small stars. "They are using atomic weapons," breathed a Morian delegate. "In combat." Council species had atomic technology, of course, but using it as a weapon was considered barbaric, a throwback to primitive times. Humans apparently had no such reservations. The Kreth fleet responded, 17 warships moving to engage the human capital ships. Captain Leon Hayes commanded one of the Earth vessels, a ship called Retribution. The Council watched as Retribution turned to face 5 Kreth warships advancing in formation. The Kreth opened fire first. Energy beams powerful enough to crack planets struck Retribution's armor. The human ship shuddered under the impact, its shields flaring. Damage reports showed hull breaches, fires on 3 decks, casualties. Retribution kept coming. Hayes gave orders in that same calm, professional tone all the human commanders seemed to use. "Target the lead vessel. Fire all forward batteries." Retribution's weapons unleashed hell. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed tore through space. Energy beams that made Kreth weapons look weak by comparison lanced out. Missiles armed with nuclear warheads streaked toward their targets. The barrage was overwhelming, far beyond anything the Council had expected from a ship only slightly larger than a Kreth warship. The lead Kreth ship's shields collapsed. The kinetic projectiles punched through its armor like it was paper. The nuclear missiles found the gaps and detonated inside the hull. The Kreth warship came apart, debris scattering across thousands of kilometers. The Council delegates sat in stunned silence. "They destroyed it," Korath whispered. In seconds, the battle continued. More Kreth ships died. The humans coordinated their attacks with a precision the Council had never witnessed, focusing fire on one target at a time, eliminating threats systematically. When Kreth weapons damaged human ships, the humans did not retreat. They pressed forward, accepting damage that would have caused Council captains to disengage. The fighting lasted 23 minutes. When it ended, all 17 Kreth warships were destroyed or crippled. The supply depot was debris. The Kreth defense platforms were silent wreckage. The human fleet had lost 1 ship, a vessel called Defiant that had been overwhelmed by concentrated fire. 2 other ships were heavily damaged, but they had won. Morrison's voice came over the communication channel addressing the Council. "Curvin Depot neutralized. Kreth presence eliminated. We are moving to the next target. Please have updated tactical data ready." Velrus found his voice, though it trembled. "Commander, your victory is remarkable, but you have lost one of your ships. Many of your people must have died. Perhaps you should return to Council space, regroup and repair." "We lost 63 personnel when Defiant went down," Morrison said. "Their sacrifice will not be wasted. We are continuing operations. The Kreth need to understand that attacking Council space has consequences." The transmission ended. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, moved deeper into Kreth territory. In the Council chamber, the delegates sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Nethra spoke, her colors shifting through patterns that indicated deep confusion and something else. "Fear. What have we done?" she asked quietly. Velrus understood the question. They had called for help. They had begged for salvation. The universe had answered by sending them humans, a species that fought with atomic weapons, that accepted casualties that would have broken Council civilizations, that destroyed enemies without hesitation or mercy. "We asked them to save us," Velrus said slowly. "We did not ask how they—" The Kreth War Council gathered in the command fortress above their conquered world of Helion 7. The chamber was dark. lit only by the red glow of status displays and the bioluminescent markings on the Kreth themselves. General Vrakthar, Supreme Commander of the 3rd Expansion Fleet, studied the reports with growing confusion. 17 ships lost at Curvin? He growled, his 4 eyes narrowing. How is this possible? The Council species do not fight. They never fight. It was not the Council, General, his intelligence officer replied, her spines rattling nervously. These were unknown vessels. Database analysis suggests they originate from a species called humans. Planet Earth, the Council contacted them. Vrakthar pulled up Earth's file. The information was minimal. A young species, barely space-capable when last surveyed, technologically primitive, militarily insignificant. This species should not have warships capable of threatening our forces, Vrakthar said. Either our intelligence is severely outdated, or the Council has allied with someone else and is using Earth as a cover. There is another possibility, General, the intelligence officer said carefully. Perhaps we underestimated them. Vrakthar's hand slammed into the display, cracking the screen. Impossible. They had barely left their home system 50 years ago. Even with rapid advancement, they should still be centuries behind us. Yet they destroyed our depot. A lucky strike, Vrakthar decided. We will send Battle Group 7 to investigate and eliminate this new threat. Then we will continue with the original plan to crush the Council. In the depths of space, the human fleet regrouped. Commander Morrison stood on the Bridge of Vengeance, studying tactical displays. The attack on Curvin had been successful, but it had revealed something concerning. The Kreth had adapted faster than expected. Their shields, while inferior to human technology, were learning to deflect some of the kinetic strikes. They are not stupid, Lieutenant Pierce said, standing beside Morrison. She had led the fighter squadron that destroyed the weapon platforms, earning her a commendation and a promotion to Morrison's tactical staff. The Kreth learn from combat. If we give them time, they will develop countermeasures. Then we do not give them time, Morrison replied. What is the next target? Pierce pulled up a star chart. According to Council intelligence, the Kreth have established forward command posts in 8 systems. Each one coordinates attacks on Council territory. If we hit them hard and fast, we can disrupt their entire offensive. Spread our fleet thin, Morrison mused. Risky. The alternative is letting them coordinate. They outnumber us significantly. We need to keep them off balance, force them to react instead of planning. Morrison nodded. It was sound strategy. The kind of aggressive tactics that made human military doctrine so effective. Send word to the other captains. We split into 3 groups. Each group hits multiple targets in rapid succession. No rest, no delays. We keep them guessing. Meanwhile, on the planet Velen Prime, the Kreth were learning that their ground invasion strategy needed updating. The planet was home to 3 billion Thun, a peaceful species of herbivores who had never raised a weapon against another sentient being. When the Kreth dropships descended, the Thun evacuated to underground shelters, offering no resistance as Kreth shock troops occupied the surface cities. It should have been a simple occupation. It was not. Sergeant Kyle Bennett crouched behind the rubble of what had once been a beautiful Thun art gallery. His Marines were spread out across the city block, taking cover positions and checking their weapons. The Kreth controlled the city center, their towering forms visible through the smoke and dust. Command, this is Ground Team Alpha. Bennett spoke into his comm. We have visual on Kreth positions. Requesting permission to engage. Captain Lisa Morgan's voice came back immediately. Permission granted, Sergeant. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show them what happens when you mess with civilians. Bennett smiled grimly. Copy that. Alpha Team, you heard the captain. Let us give these oversized lizards a proper Earth welcome. The Kreth never saw the attack coming. They were used to fighting species that resisted reluctantly, if at all. They expected any opposition to be minimal and poorly coordinated. What they got was a precisely executed ambush by soldiers who had been training for combat since they could walk. Bennett's team opened fire simultaneously. The crack of human rifles echoed through the city streets. The Kreth soldiers, caught in the open, fell as bullets tore through their body armor. The armor was designed to protect against energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds. Contact, one of the Kreth soldiers roared, raising his energy weapon. He managed to fire once before a grenade landed at his feet. The explosion turned the Kreth soldier and 3 of his companions into a red mist. The surviving Kreth retreated to cover, finally finding defensive positions. They returned fire. their energy weapons scorching the buildings where the humans hid. But the humans were already moving using tactics that bewildered the Kreth. They attacked from unexpected angles, laid traps in seemingly safe areas, and coordinated with a level of precision the Kreth had never encountered. Private Danny Shaw worked his way around the Kreth position, moving through the ruined buildings with practiced ease. He reached a vantage point overlooking the Kreth defensive line and set up his sniper rifle. Through his scope, he could see a Kreth commander directing troops, identifiable by the elaborate markings on his armor. Shaw exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked. The Kreth commander's head snapped back and he collapsed. Instantly, the Kreth formation lost cohesion as subordinates tried to take command. Command element neutralized, Shaw reported calmly. Bennett's team pressed the advantage. They moved in using the confusion to close distance. Combat knives flashed in the smoke. The Kreth discovered that humans were not just good at shooting from a distance. They were equally deadly up close. The fight lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, 40 Kreth soldiers lay dead. Bennett's team had lost 2 Marines, both killed by Kreth energy weapons. The survivors dragged their dead comrades back to the extraction point, refusing to leave anyone behind. Captain Morgan arrived with reinforcements, her armored transport settling onto the street with a roar of engines. She stepped out, surveying the battlefield with professional interest. "Good work, Sergeant," she said. "The Kreth are retreating from this sector." Apparently, they did not expect actual resistance. "They expected to roll over scared civilians," Bennett replied, anger edging into his voice. "They forgot that some species fight back." Morgan nodded. "Let them learn. Every Kreth soldier that survives today will tell others what happened here. Fear is a weapon, Sergeant. We are going to make the Kreth afraid." The human ground campaign spread across 3 worlds. Everywhere the Kreth had landed expecting easy occupation, they instead found human Marines waiting. The battles were brutal and short. The humans used every advantage: superior tactics, better coordination, weapons designed for maximum lethality. They took no prisoners in active combat zones. Wounded Kreth were left where they fell. When questioned about this by council observers, Captain Morgan's response was blunt and chilling. "The Kreth do not take prisoners either," she said. "They execute civilians. They destroy cities. We are simply matching their level of mercy, which is to say, none at all. This is not a police action. This is war. If the council wanted gentle peacekeepers, you should have called someone else." The council representatives fell silent. They had called someone else. They had called humanity. This was the result. In space, the human fleet continued its devastating campaign. Battle Group 7, sent by General Vrakthar to eliminate the human threat, found itself instead fighting for survival. The Kreth had 30 ships. The humans had 2, part of Morrison's divided fleet. It should have been a massacre, with the Kreth overwhelming the outnumbered humans. Instead, the human ships tore through the Kreth formation like knives through paper. They used tactics the Kreth could not predict, coordinating their movements with machine precision. When one human ship was damaged, the other positioned itself to cover its companion, accepting hits to protect the wounded vessel. The Kreth could not understand this. Their culture valued individual glory. A damaged Kreth ship was abandoned, left to die while others sought victory. The idea of sacrificing tactical advantage to protect a crippled vessel made no sense to them. It cost them the battle. The human ships fought as a unit, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying their strengths. By the time Battle Group 7 realized they were losing, it was too late. Half their fleet was destroyed. The survivors fled, carrying tales of human ferocity back to General Vrakthar. The general studied the battle reports with growing unease. The humans fought like nothing the Kreth had encountered. They accepted losses that would have broken any other species. They showed no mercy and asked for none. Most disturbing, they seemed to enjoy the challenge. Intercepted communications from the human fleet included laughter, cheering, and casual banter, even in the midst of intense combat. The humans were not fighting because they had to. They were fighting because they knew how and they were good at it. "These are warriors," Vrakthar said slowly, understanding dawning. "Not." The transport ship descended through the atmosphere of Velon Prime, its hull glowing red from re-entry heat. Inside, 300 human Marines checked their equipment one final time. This was the largest ground deployment since the war began, and everyone knew it would be brutal. Sergeant Kyle Bennett sat strapped into his seat, watching the younger soldiers. Some looked nervous. Others looked eager. All of them looked ready. That was what months of training did. It turned civilians into soldiers, people into weapons. 5 minutes to drop, came the pilot's voice over the intercom. Weather is clear. Enemy forces are concentrated around the capital city. Intel suggests 5,000 Kreth soldiers, maybe more. 5,000 Kreth against 300 humans. Bennett had seen worse odds. Not by much, but he had seen worse. Captain Lisa Morgan stood at the front of the transport bay, magnetic boots keeping her steady as the ship shuddered through turbulence. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she had proven herself in the Mars Rebellion and the Titan Wars. She knew how to lead, and more importantly, she knew how to win. "Listen up," Morgan called out, her voice cutting through the noise. "The Kreth think they own this planet. They think the Thun civilians are helpless, and they think we are too few to matter. They are wrong on both counts. We are going to teach them the most important lesson any bully needs to learn. There are consequences for hurting the defenseless." The Marines roared their approval, the sound echoing in the confined space. "Rules of engagement are simple," Morgan continued. "Kreth soldiers are legitimate targets. Kreth civilians, if we encounter any, are not. The Thun civilians are under our protection. Anyone who harms them answers to me." "Clear? Clear, ma'am!" the Marines shouted in unison. The transport touched down on the outskirts of the city. The rear ramp dropped and the Marines poured out in organized chaos. They formed up quickly, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. The city stretched before them, beautiful architecture now scarred by Kreth weapons fire. Bennett led his squad through the streets, using buildings for cover. The Kreth had set up checkpoints throughout the city, controlling movement and terrorizing the population. The first checkpoint came into view, 6 Kreth soldiers standing guard around a makeshift barrier. "Remember your training," Bennett whispered to his squad. "Fast and clean. No mercy." The attack was over in seconds. Silenced rifles coughed, and the Kreth soldiers fell without firing a shot. Bennett's squad moved through the checkpoint, securing it and setting up their own defensive position. This would be their forward base. Throughout the city, similar scenes played out. Human squads hit Kreth positions with devastating efficiency. The Kreth, spread thin across the urban landscape, found themselves fighting on a dozen fronts simultaneously. Every time they concentrated forces to counter one threat, another appeared behind them. Private Danny Shaw moved through an apartment building, his sniper rifle ready. He reached the top floor and set up overlooking a Kreth command post. Through his scope, he watched Kreth officers planning their response to the human attacks. They looked confident, even amused. They still thought they were dealing with a minor nuisance. Shaw took a deep breath and began firing. His first shot dropped a Kreth colonel. His second killed a communications officer. By the third shot, the Kreth were scrambling for cover, but Shaw was already relocating, moving to a different vantage point. "Sniper contact," Shaw reported calmly. "Command element disrupted." This was human doctrine. Strike the head, create chaos, exploit the confusion. It worked on Earth against human opponents. Against the Kreth, who relied heavily on rigid command structures, it was devastatingly effective. The Kreth finally organized a response. A battle formation of 300 soldiers, led by a war leader named Krathnak, moved to engage the humans directly. Krathnak was a veteran of 20 campaigns. He had conquered 6 worlds. He was genetically engineered for combat, standing over 7 feet tall, his muscles enhanced, his reflexes boosted. He was everything the Kreth Dominion believed made a perfect warrior. He led his soldiers down a wide avenue, confident that their superior numbers and physical advantages would crush the humans. He rounded a corner and found Captain Morgan waiting for him, flanked by 50 Marines. "About time," Morgan said, raising her rifle. "We were getting bored." The battle that followed would be analyzed by military historians for decades. The Kreth charged exactly as their training dictated, using their size and strength to overwhelm opponents. It had worked against every species they had fought. It did not work against humans. Morgan's Marines did not stand and trade blows. They moved constantly, using the urban environment to their advantage. They fired from windows, from rooftops, from behind cover. When the Kreth tried to close distance, the humans retreated, drawing them into kill zones where crossfire could tear them apart. Krathnak roared in frustration, trying to rally his troops. A grenade landed at his feet. He kicked it away, but it detonated in mid-air, the shrapnel shredding 3 of his soldiers. Another grenade came from a different direction. Then another. The humans were not fighting honorably. They were fighting to win. Private First Class Jenny Rodriguez flanked the Kreth formation, her squad moving through a side street. They emerged behind the Kreth line and opened fire at point-blank range. The Kreth soldiers, caught between Morgan's frontal assault and Rodriguez's rear attack, panicked. Panic was death in combat. The battle turned into a massacre. The Kreth soldiers, for all their genetic advantages, fell like wheat before a scythe. They were stronger than humans, yes. They were faster, more durable. But they had never fought an enemy that used tactics this sophisticated. They had never faced soldiers who viewed combat as a science, not just a test of strength. Krathnak himself fell, 3 bullet wounds in his chest, another in his head. His last thought was confusion. How could the smaller, weaker humans defeat him? How could they beat warriors who were literally bred for battle? The answer was simple. The Kreth were bred for battle. Humans were forged by it. There was a difference. Captain Morgan surveyed the battlefield, counting casualties. They had lost 18 Marines in the engagement. 18 lives that could never be replaced. But they had killed 300 Kreth and secured a major portion of the city. "Command, this is Ground Team Charlie," Morgan reported. "Sector 7 is secure. Kreth resistance is collapsing. We have captured Kreth communication equipment and are intercepting their tactical channels." "Good work, Captain," came the response from Orbital Command. "Be advised, Kreth reinforcements are inbound from the eastern continent." "Ida, 40 minutes," Morgan smiled coldly. "Let them come. We will be waiting." While ground forces secured Velon Prime, the space battle at Tarvon reached its climax. Commander Morrison's 6 ships faced 200 Kreth vessels. The odds were beyond suicidal. Morrison knew it. His crews knew it. They attacked anyway. The human ships did not form a traditional battle line. They scattered, each vessel becoming an independent threat that required Kreth attention. The Kreth fleet tried to coordinate, tried to mass their fire on individual targets. The humans refused to cooperate, moving at speeds that made tracking difficult and maintaining patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated. Lieutenant Pierce led her fighter squadrons in a death-defying run through the center of the Kreth formation. Fighters were tiny, easy to destroy with a lucky shot, but almost impossible to target reliably when they moved at full speed. Pierce and her pilots weaved through the Kreth fleet, their missiles seeking out vulnerable spots, engine clusters, shield generators, weapon arrays. "This is Pierce to all fighters," she called over the squadron channel. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy these ships. We are trying to blind them, cripple them, make them easy targets for the big guns." Her fighters danced through a storm of enemy fire. 4 were destroyed in the first pass. The survivors launched their missiles and escaped, racing back toward their carriers while the Kreth fleet tried futilely to intercept them. Behind them, the missiles found their marks. Explosions blossomed across the Kreth formation, knocking out sensors and weapon systems. The Kreth ships, momentarily blind and defenseless, became perfect targets. The human capital ships opened fire. The Vengeance targeted 5 Kreth vessels simultaneously, its weapons computer calculating firing solutions faster than any organic mind could. Kinetic rounds traveled at relativistic speeds, crossing the distance in heartbeats. They struck with the force of small nuclear weapons, punching through armor and shields alike. 3 Kreth ships died instantly. 2 more were crippled, their engines destroyed, their crews venting into space through hull breaches. "Keep moving," Morrison ordered. "Do not give them a stable target. Make them work for every shot." The battle raged for 3 hours. It was the longest continuous engagement of the war. The Kreth fleet had numbers, but the humans had skill and technology and a willingness to take risks that bordered on insanity. When a Kreth destroyer got a lucky shot on the human ship Liberty, crippling its engines, Captain Helen Wright made a decision that would be remembered forever. She ordered her crew to abandon ship, then set the Liberty on a collision course with the nearest Kreth battleship. "This is right to all human vessels," she transmitted calmly. "Liberty is—" The medical ship Hope drifted in orbit above Velon Prime, its white hull marked with red crosses that the Council species did not recognize but somehow understood meant healing. Inside, human doctors worked alongside Council medical staff, treating wounded soldiers and traumatized civilians. Dr. Claire Adams moved through the recovery ward, checking on patients. She was not military, had never wanted to be, but when Earth put out the call for volunteers to support the war effort, she had stepped forward. Someone needed to heal the wounds that war created, and she had always believed in helping those who could not help themselves. She stopped at a bed where a young Thun civilian lay recovering. The creature looked like a cross between a deer and a dolphin, with soft gray skin and large, gentle eyes. Those eyes held trauma now, shadows that should never have been there. "How are you feeling?" Claire asked through the translation device. "Better," the Thun replied, her voice musical even in distress. "The humans saved us. The Kreth were going to kill everyone in our shelter. They were already breaking through the doors. Then the humans came and the Kreth ran away." Claire smiled gently. "You are safe now. That is what matters." "But so many humans died," the Thun said, tears forming in her large eyes. "I saw their bodies. They stood between us and the Kreth. They did not run." "That is what soldiers do," Claire said softly. "They stand when others cannot." She moved on to the next patient, a human Marine who had lost his leg in combat. Private Scott Miller lay in the bed, staring at the ceiling. He was only 23 years old. Too young for this, Claire thought, though she knew age meant nothing in war. "How is the pain?" she asked. "Manageable," Miller replied. "The drugs help." "When do I get a prosthetic?" "A week, maybe less. The fabricators are working overtime. You will walk again, I promise." Miller nodded, then looked at her seriously. "Doc, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Was it worth it?" "Coming out here, fighting this war. Was it worth what it cost?" Claire pulled up a chair and sat beside his bed. "What do you think?" Miller was quiet for a moment. "I think about the Thun in that shelter. 300 civilians, kids, old folks, families. The Kreth were going to execute them all. My squad stopped that. We saved them. But I lost my leg and Johnny did not make it home at all. So I do not know. Was saving 300 aliens worth Johnny's life and my leg? I cannot answer that for you," Claire said honestly. "But I can tell you what I saw. I saw the Thun children who are alive because you fought. I saw families that are still together because humans stood between them and death. I saw hope in the eyes of people who thought they had none left. Johnny had a family too," Miller said quietly. "A mom and a little sister. They will never see him again. No, they will not. And that is a tragedy. But Johnny made a choice. You all did. You chose to be the ones who stand in the way of evil. That has a cost and it is not fair and it hurts. But the alternative is letting the Kreth win, letting them murder civilizations. Could you have lived with that?" Miller thought about it, then shook his head. No, I could not have." "Then you have your answer." Claire left the medical bay and found Ambassador Velrus waiting in the corridor. The Thalon looked tired, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. The war had aged him, though his species aged slowly. It was not physical age, but spiritual exhaustion. "Dr. Adams," Velrus greeted her. "May I speak with you?" "Of course. Walk with me." They moved through the ship's corridors, passing wounded humans and grateful council species. Velrus observed everything with his large, thoughtful eyes. "I need to understand humans," Velrus said finally. "I have studied your species, read your history, watched your soldiers fight. But I still do not understand. How can you be so compassionate and so violent at the same time?" Claire considered the question carefully. "Those things are not opposites, Ambassador. Humans learned long ago that sometimes compassion requires violence. If someone is hurting the innocent, compassion for the victims means stopping the attacker even if that requires force. But the cost," Velrus protested. "You have lost thousands of your people in our war. 12,416 the last count I saw. How do you bear that? The council would have surrendered after 100 casualties. The idea of losing thousands is incomprehensible." Claire stopped walking and turned to face him directly. "Every single one of those 12,000 people volunteered, Ambassador. Nobody was forced to come here. We asked for volunteers to save a civilization we had never met, and hundreds of thousands applied. We had to turn people away. But why? What do you gain from this?" "Nothing," Claire said simply. "Nothing material anyway. We gain the knowledge that we helped, that we stood for something. On Earth we have a phrase, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The Kreth were committing genocide. We could have ignored your distress call. Stayed home, stayed safe, but then we would have to live knowing we could have helped and chose not to. For humans, that is unbearable. Velrus struggled to process this. Your species fights and dies for strangers. Yes, is that so strange? To us it is. The council species are peaceful, but we are also practical. We help those we know, those we have bonds with. We do not throw our lives away for aliens we have never met. Claire smiled sadly. And that is why you needed us. Because evil does not care about practicality or logic. Evil thrives when good people refuse to sacrifice. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. Over thousands of years of war and suffering. We learned that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to be willing to become the monster. They reached an observation deck, a large window looking out at Velen Prime below. The planet was healing. The scars of Kreth occupation slowly fading as reconstruction began. Velrus stared at it, his mind churning with thoughts. How many more will die? He asked quietly. I do not know, Claire admitted. The war is not over. The Kreth are retreating, but they are not defeated. There will be more battles, more casualties. But we will see it through. That is what humans do. We finish what we start, even if it costs everything? Claire nodded. Even then, Velrus turned away from the window. I envy you, Dr. Adams. The council species evolved beyond violence, and we thought that made us advanced. But now I wonder if we did not lose something essential, the willingness to fight for what matters, the courage to stand against evil even when it is easier to look away. You are not wrong to value peace, Claire said gently. The universe needs dreamers and philosophers and artists. But it also needs warriors. Not because violence is good, but because sometimes it is necessary. Humans are willing to be those warriors so that others do not have to be. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the planet below. Finally, Velrus spoke again. Tell me about your lost. Commander Morrison announced their names at the last memorial service, all 12,000. He knew everyone. We always do, Claire said. On Earth, we have a tradition. When soldiers die in battle, we say their names. We remember them. They are not statistics or numbers. They are people. They had families, dreams, fears, hopes. Danny Wright wanted to be a teacher. Helen Carter was going to open a restaurant. Pete Jackson collected old music. They were people and we remember them. And that helps? No, Claire said honestly. It hurts. It always hurts. But it keeps them alive in memory. It honors their sacrifice. And it reminds us why we fight. We fight so that their deaths mean something. Velrus was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question that had been haunting him since the war began. What happens when this is over? When the Kreth are defeated and your fleet returns home, what does the Council do with the knowledge that humans exist? That there is a species out there capable of such violence even in service of good? Claire met his eyes. That is not my decision, Ambassador. I am just a doctor. But I can tell you what I hope happens. I hope the Council remembers that humans did not come to conquer you. We came to help. We bled for you, died for you, and when it is over, we will go home and ask for nothing in return. I hope you remember that humans can be trusted, that we are friends worth having even if we are scary friends. Scary friends, Velrus repeated, tasting the phrase. Yes, that is accurate. The Council is terrified of you, Doctor, even as we are grateful. We see your soldiers fight without fear. We see your ships accepting damage that would destroy our vessels. We see your willingness to sacrifice. And it frightens us because we know that if humans ever decided to be our enemies instead of our friends, we would have no defense. Then I guess you better make sure we stay friends, Claire said with a small smile. Velrus managed something like a laugh. Yes, I believe that would be wise. They parted ways, Velrus returning to his diplomatic duties and Claire to her patients. But the conversation stayed with both of them, a reminder of the gulf between species and the bridges that could be built across it. On the Bridge of Vengeance, Commander Morrison received updated casualty reports. The number climbed steadily. 12,782. Each one a name, a face, a person who had volunteered to save strangers. Lieutenant Pierce found him staring at the list, his face drawn with exhaustion. Sir, you need to sleep, she said gently. Later, Morrison replied. First, I need to write letters. Families deserve to... Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Earth colonial ship Determination, watching as the largest human battle fleet ever assembled completed its final preparations. 30 warships, representing everything Earth could spare without leaving the home system defenseless. He had been recalled from the outer colony specifically to lead this mission, and he understood why. This was not just a military operation. This was a statement. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his executive officer reported. Commander Beth Harper was young but competent, promoted rapidly due to the demands of the war. Fleet composition includes 6 battleships, 12 cruisers, 8 destroyers, and 4 carrier groups. Total crew complement 43,000. Cole nodded, studying the tactical displays. "And our objective? The Kreth homeworld, planet Krethon. Current intelligence suggests it is defended by approximately 80 warships, multiple defense platforms, and a planetary shield grid. 80 ships against 30, Cole mused, plus fixed defenses. Not ideal. Commander Morrison's task force is already in system, Harper added. They have been conducting raids and reconnaissance for 2 weeks, drawing Kreth attention and resources. Cole pulled up Morrison's reports. The smaller human force had been remarkably effective, hitting supply lines and communication relays, keeping the Kreth off balance. But Morrison's ships were battered, his crews exhausted. They needed relief, and more importantly, they needed this war to end. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council," Harper said. "Ambassador Velrus is requesting to speak with you." "Put him through." Velrus's image appeared on the screen, his forearms moving in agitation. "Admiral Cole, I must protest in the strongest possible terms. Your fleet is planning to assault the Kreth homeworld. This is escalation beyond anything we discussed." "With respect, Ambassador, we did not discuss anything," Cole replied calmly. "Earth came to help. We are helping. The Kreth will not stop until they are unable to continue. Diplomacy has failed. Defense has failed. The only option left is to remove their ability to wage war. But an attack on their homeworld will result in massive casualties, both military and civilian." "We are aware," Cole said, "which is why we are offering the Kreth one final chance to surrender. We have transmitted terms: unconditional surrender, reparations to the Council species they harmed, and trials for war criminals. If they accept, no assault will be necessary." Velrus's posture suggested deep concern. "And if they refuse, then we do what must be done." Cole's voice was hard. "Ambassador, the Council asked for our help because the Kreth were committing genocide. You wanted this stopped. We are stopping it. If you wanted a gentler solution, you should have found one before billions of your people died." The transmission ended. Cole felt no satisfaction from the exchange. He understood Velrus's concerns. The Council species thought in terms of negotiation and compromise. They could not conceive of total war, of forcing an enemy to surrender completely. Humans could. Humans had extensive experience with it. "Sir, the Kreth have responded to our surrender demand," Harper reported. "What do they say?" "They say, and I quote, 'Come and die, weak ones.' Krethon has never fallen and never will." Cole allowed himself a grim smile. "Well, at least they are consistent. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for jump to Kreth home system. We attack in 1 hour." The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kreth home system. Ahead, the planet Krethon hung like a red jewel, its atmosphere thick with volcanic gases that gave it a hellish appearance. It was fitting, Cole thought, that a species as brutal as the Kreth would evolve on a world that looked like it belonged in nightmares. "Sensors are detecting the Kreth defense fleet," Harper reported. 87 ships. Multiple capital vessels. They are forming a defensive wall between us and the planet. "Expected," Cole said. "Launch all fighters. Order Captain Quinn to take his destroyer group and engage the left flank. Captain Stevens will take the right. Battleship group advances center. Standard Alpha formation." The human fleet spread out, each group moving to its assigned position with practiced precision. This was not the desperate, improvised fighting that had characterized the early battles. This was coordinated, professional, overwhelming force brought to bear with calculated efficiency. Lieutenant Amy Pierce, promoted and given command of the carrier group's fighter wings, led 300 small craft into the maelstrom. Her pilots were veterans now, survivors of dozens of engagements. They knew their business. "All wings, this is Pierce," she transmitted. "Priority targets are the defense platforms. Once they are down, the capital ships can move in. Stay fast, stay unpredictable, and for God's sake, stay alive. We are too close to the end of this war to lose anyone now." The fighters streaked forward, their small size making them difficult targets. The Kreth defense platforms opened fire, filling space with energy beams and kinetic projectiles. 3 fighters died in the first seconds. Pierce gritted her teeth and kept flying. Wing 2, I need suppression fire on platform Delta 7, she called. Wing 3 hit the shield generator on platform Delta 9. The human fighters danced through the defensive fire, their missiles seeking out vulnerable points. Explosions blossomed across the Kreth platforms as nuclear warheads found their marks. One by one, the platforms went silent, their shields collapsing, their weapons going offline. Platforms neutralized, Pierce reported. Capital ships have a clear approach. Acknowledged, came Cole's response. Good work, Lieutenant. Return to carrier and rearm. Second wave will launch in 10 minutes. The battleship group advanced, massive vessels designed for this exact purpose, breaking fortified positions. Their main guns charged, particle accelerators that could punch through planetary crust given enough time. The Kreth warships moved to intercept, but they were too slow. Human battleships were not graceful or elegant. They were designed for pure destructive capability. When they fired, space itself seemed to scream. The particle beams lanced out, crossing millions of kilometers in seconds. They struck the Kreth defensive line with catastrophic force. 6 Kreth capital ships died in the opening salvo. Their shields, designed to protect against energy weapons, offered little resistance to particles moving at relativistic speeds. The beams punched through hulls, through decks, through everything, leaving nothing but wreckage. Captain Helen Quinn commanded the destroyer group on the left flank. Her objective was to draw Kreth forces away from the main battle line, to create confusion and exploit weaknesses. She led her 8 ships in a high-speed run around the Kreth formation, her weapons firing constantly. Target that cruiser, Quinn ordered. All ships concentrate fire. The destroyers were smaller than battleships, but faster and more maneuverable. They swarmed the Kreth cruiser like wolves, bringing down a larger predator. Missiles, kinetic rounds, and energy weapons hammered the enemy vessel from all sides. Its shields held for 30 seconds, then failed. The destroyers closed in for the kill. The battle raged for hours. The Kreth fought with desperate ferocity, knowing they were defending their home world. But desperation was not enough against superior tactics and technology. The human fleet dismantled the Kreth defense methodically, one ship at a time. On the planet below, the Kreth civilian population watched the battle through their networks. They had been told humans were weak, primitive, barely worth noticing. They watched their supposedly invincible fleet die in orbit and realized the truth. The Empire had picked a fight with the wrong species. Kreth defense fleet is down to 37 ships, Harper reported. We have lost 4 destroyers and taken damage across multiple vessels. Casualty estimates are approaching 3,000. Cole absorbed the numbers without reaction. 3,000 lives. 3,000 families who would receive terrible news. But the alternative was allowing the Kreth to continue their campaigns of conquest and genocide. There were no good choices, only necessary ones. Signal Commander Morrison, Cole ordered. Tell him to commence his part of the operation. Morrison's battered task force had been waiting on the far side of the system. Now they moved 6 ships that had been fighting for months, their hulls scarred, their crews exhausted. But they had one more mission. All ships, Morrison transmitted. Target the planetary shield generators. We need to bring them down so the Admiral can complete the mission. This is what we came here to do. Let us finish it. The Kreth had built their planetary shields to be impenetrable, powered by massive generators protected by layers of armor and defensive weapons. They had not accounted for human determination. Captain Pete Jackson, who had once flown a fighter into a Kreth dreadnought, now commanded a destroyer after his promotion. He led the attack on the primary shield generator, his ship taking heavy fire from ground-based weapons. His shields failed. His armor cracked. His crew reported casualties. Captain, we need to pull back, his executive officer urged. Negative, Jackson replied calmly. Arm the main torpedo. Override all safety protocols. Set it for maximum yield. Sir, that will drain our power core. We will be defenseless. We will not need defenses. We will need that generator down. Fire when ready. The torpedo launched, containing enough destructive power to level a city. It streaked toward the shield generator, dodging defensive fire.